The film begins with a somber atmosphere. Two innocent sisters, Spider and her younger sister, stand weeping before their mother's corpse. Their mother died the previous night from an overdose of drugs. With hearts filled with grief, they silently pick up her mother's body and hide it in an old trunk in a nearby shed. Spider's younger sister, tearfully expressing her love for her mother one last time, takes out her last memento, her lobster, and keeps it with her. As the older sister, Spider is both grief-stricken and fearful that if anyone outside learns of their mother's death, the authorities will separate them, leaving them forever. However, Spider, unwilling to lose her younger sister, decides to pretend their mother is still alive. The next morning, the two sisters leave for school as usual. However, the younger sister has also worn her mother's locket. Therefore, Spider tells her to remove it and keep it at home. Even after reaching school, she reminds her not to tell anyone about her mother's death. Later, to ease her heart, Spider tells her best friend about her mother's death on the condition that she doesn't tell anyone, adding that she doesn't want to lose her little sister under any circumstance. Her friend, saddened by this, decides to help and encourage her, but the very next evening, an act by her younger sister frightens her. She came home from school with her friend and her grandmother. Spider, alarmed, scolds her and warns her not to bring anyone home, let alone anywhere near the house, because people might come and find out their truth. But besides the fear of people finding out their truth, another problem arises.
Their food supplies are slowly running out, and their mother's monthly income is still 6 days away. So, the two decide to somehow survive by eating less for the next 6 days. But then suddenly, their mother's friend Ray comes to visit. Spider, to avoid her, lies, saying that their mother left with another woman an hour ago. Still, Ray suspects Spider is lying, but for now he says, "Be sure to call me when their mother returns." With that, he leaves. In a panic, his sister repeatedly insists that Ray might return. Angrily, Spider yells at her, causing her to sit next to her mother's body and cry. Spider then goes to her, hugs her, and explains that Ray is just a drug addict. When he feels his mother doesn't want him, he'll go to someone else. To cheer up his sister, Spider takes her shopping as soon as she has the money. They buy a lot of food, have a lot of fun, and sit outside eating. It's been a long day since they've eaten something good. But then, a shop worker comes out and starts taking pictures of them. Spider scolds him and goes to him. She tries to delete the photos from his camera, but his camera isn't digital, so she can't. Once home, Spider tells her sister that they're receiving $600 per month from the government at $200 per person, and that's because no one knows about their mother's death yet. Afterward, the two sisters fall asleep, talking about their mother and remembering her. But the next morning, their tensions increase. Suddenly, their mother receives a call from Child Services, who says she'll be coming to the house to check on them. Both sisters panic. Spider's sister says if they learn the truth, they'll be separated. So, together, they start cleaning their mother's room, where they find her old teaching certificate. This reveals that their mother was a teacher before becoming a drug addict. Spider then decides to tell the officer that their mother has gone for a job interview at a bank. But then Spider's sister remembers that their mother's car is still parked outside, which could make the officer suspicious. So the two sisters try to hide it together. Spider doesn't even know how to drive, but somehow she manages to get the car started and hides it out of sight. Then, when the officer arrives home the next day, they both say that their mother has gone for a job interview and tell their mother that she has gone to the bank. She tries to pretend to be a responsible and loving mother. The officer thoroughly checks their entire house, including the refrigerator and their mother's room, and after finding everything in order, leaves, telling them to call when their mother returns. Both breathe a sigh of relief for the time being, but she knows the officer will return in a few days. So the next day, Spider decides to escape and goes to the bus station to inquire about ticket prices, but the receptionist, knowing she's only 15, warns her not to wander around alone. Convinced by her words, Spider leaves and returns to the store to buy some essentials. There, she meets the cameraman shop worker again. The worker shows her the photo he took that day and explains that he often takes photographs and offers Spider to come with him sometime where he and the two can take photos. But Spider refuses and returns home. Back home, her sister is still holding her mother's locket, remembering her. She asks Spider, "Why are you so angry with your mother?" Spider simply replies, her mother made some bad decisions in her life. A little while later, her sister sees the photo the worker took and teases Spider, asking him if he likes her. Spider then tells her that he offered to accompany her to take the photos. Hearing this, her sister insists that she should go with him. Spider agrees. The next day, the worker comes to pick Spider up with an old bike, and they wander off into a remote forest. Spider jokingly asks, "Are you a killer?" The worker smiles, and they go into the forest, and the worker teaches her how to use the camera and take photos. Upon returning, he takes Spider to his darkroom and prints the photos. It's there that Spider learns about one of his clients, who creates fake certificates because he was a document-making officer. Then, at Spider's request, the worker drops her off a short distance from her home and gives her a small digital camera to keep for a few days. Upon arriving home, both Spider and her sister are overjoyed. Gradually, they move past their mother's grief and begin to find small joys and support each other. But their happiness doesn't last long. One day, while she's sitting in a cafe, Ray arrives and angrily asks about their mother, who hasn't spoken to her in a while. He threatens Spider, saying that if their mother doesn't want to meet him, she should at least return his $300 by Friday. Both sisters are horrified, as they barely have enough money for themselves. In a panic, Spider goes to a store the next day and sells the digital camera the worker gave her, but she only gets $50. So, to make up the remaining amount, she pawns her mother's necklace and goes to Ray's van that night to give him the money and beg him to stop following her. But Ray begins teasing Spider, saying mean things about her mother. He says, "Your mother is a drug addict. She's always drunk. If she were sane, she would never send you here alone." Hearing this, Spider breaks down and runs crying into the shed. Angrily, she repeatedly kicks the trunk containing her mother's corpse, shouting, "I hate you because you even befriended a vile person like Ray." Upon arriving home, her sister, terrified, hugs her tightly and asks, "Will Ray leave us alone now?" Spider softly replies, "Yes," but she knows that if Ray discovers their mother's death, the two sisters will be separated. The next day, she begins reading about adoption on the internet. She learned that an 18-year-old brother or sister could adopt younger siblings. However, she was only 15. That night, her sister asked her about their mother's locket. Fearing she might be heartbroken, Spider refused to tell her that she had pawned the necklace. Just then, her mother received a call from Spider's friend's father, who is the sheriff, as he is also friends with Spider's mother. He sent her a voice message asking her to call him back, which further alarmed Spider. The next day, she met with the worker's client, the document maker, and presented her with her fake papers. She asks for a driver's license, a birth certificate, etc., to make it look like she's 18, but she doesn't have the money to pay the officer's exorbitant fees. Spider convinces her to get the papers, saying, "I desperately need them." Returning home, she shares her plan with her friend. "I'll take my sister and go to a place where no one knows us. I'll use a fake ID to pretend I'm 18 and adopt my sister. But for now, I won't tell my sister anything." Her friend is shocked to hear this, but she also encourages her. The next day, Spider goes to the store, buys back the worker's camera, returns it, and tells him to leave, saying, "I don't have time to spend with him anymore." But the worker persuades her to hang out with him again, and she agrees. They take these photos together and gradually begin to like him. But later, while she's home with her sister, a child services officer suddenly arrives. The two sisters panic and hide in the shed where their mother's body was found. However, the officer arrives and begins investigating, calling their mother's phone and leaving a warning voicemail that if she doesn't call back by evening, she'll call the sheriff. Panicked, Spider goes straight to the officer's house to get fake IDs, but he's not there, and his fake ID hasn't been made.
Spider is at a loss for what to do. His sister asks about their mother's locket again. Spider reveals the truth. "I sold the necklace." Hearing this, his sister is heartbroken. She says, "That locket was everything to our mother, but you sold it." Spider explains that their mother loved drugs and was a bad woman. Spider was saying this angrily. His sister refuses to believe it. Spider then reminds her how their mother mistreated them, and how her sister, when she was very young, had forgotten her on the porch. Hearing her cries, Spider rescued her. Spider also tells her that her asthma was caused by her mother's mistake. While she was pregnant, she took a lot of dangerous drugs, weakening her lungs before she was even born. Hearing this, her sister breaks down and cries, saying that this can't be true. She then runs out of the house, gasping for breath and collapsing unconscious from an asthma attack. Spider immediately follows her outside. She remembers that she forgot to refill her breathing inhaler. Panicked, she calls 911, but the ambulance will take time. Thinking this, she puts her sister in the car and drives her to the hospital. The doctors immediately admit her and begin treatment, but the doctor refuses to tell her anything, saying her sister's condition should only be reported to an elder. Now, even if she wanted to, she can't call her mother, so she sits there, saddened. Just then, her friend's father, sheriff, arrives and confirms with the doctor that her sister is fine. She breaks down in tears, blaming herself for her sister's condition because she forgot to refill her inhaler. inhaler. Sheriff explains to her that she's her sister and that it's all her mother's responsibility. He asks about her mother, but Spider can't say anything. She just softly pleads, "Please don't separate us." Just then, her sister is discharged and Sheriff brings them home. When his wife learns that their mother has been missing for weeks, she tells her husband that the two sisters should stay with her until they find a good family. Then we'll give them up for adoption. But Sheriff explains that this isn't easy, as their town already has over 70 children waiting for families, and if these two sisters are added to that list, it will be impossible for them to live in the same home. The next morning, Sheriff drops Spider and her sister off at school. Spider is desperate to escape, so her friend forcibly gives her some money to help her. Spider then gets fake IDs from the officer. She returns home. Her sister, surprised, quickly packs up. "Where are we going?" Spider tells her, "We have to run." But her sister refuses. She doesn't want to leave her friends and mother like this. But Spider explains that if she doesn't run away, they'll be separated. In anger, she even slaps her. Suddenly, Ray barges into their house, forcibly pins Spider against the wall. He then says, "Your mother is dead, isn't she? And you're keeping her $200. You've been hiding it from everyone. If you want me to keep my mouth shut and agree to this, I'll have to give you $200 every month for your mother's sake." But his intentions are becoming more and more sinister. So before anything bad happens, the two sisters attack him together, and Spider knocks him unconscious with a baseball bat. Her sister then sadly tells Spider, "I don't want to go anywhere." Spider understands her feeling. Then sitting together, they sing an old song about their mother, and finally decide to tell the police everything. And they do. A short while later, their mother's body is taken away, and the sheriff sits beside them. Spider sadly asks, "Was what I did wrong?" The sheriff sadly replies, "Whatever you did was to keep your sister together," and he assures them he will never separate them. Then their mother's funeral is held, where both sisters with sad hearts and sad faces place flowers on her coffin, and the sheriff's family accepts them as part of their family. They had adopted them so they could never be separated. A short while later, the worker comes to visit Spider. Spider then remembers her mother looking at her locket which she had bought back and regrets every bad thought about her. Then when she opens the locket and sees the childhood pictures of both the sisters inside it, Spider now wears the locket around her neck and vows to always take care of her younger sister and never leave her side. And with this, the story of this film also ends here.